Hey guys, how's it going? Hope you're doing well. My name is Crown, and today I'm going to read you some very interesting stories that I hope that you're gonna love. And now, without further ado, let's go! My freshman year of college, one of my friends, let's call her Jay, was having roommate trouble. Jay's roommate from Colorado seemed nice enough, but must have previously lived at the top of one of those mountains because she liked to keep the room at frigid 50 degrees Fahrenheit. Jay grew up in a hot city with a family that was more prone to just cracking a window instead of running the AC and preferred to keep the room at 80+. She knew that was extreme and was willing to compromise. They talked about it and both agreed they could meet in the middle and keep the room at 65 degrees. Great! Except Miss Colorado refused to actually follow the agreement. Anytime my friend would go to class, go to sleep, or even just have her back to the thermostat, Miss Colorado would drop it down to 50. Jay was wearing 2 sweaters and multiple layers of fuzzy socks just to go to bed. She couldn't concentrate in her room because it was too cold. At any time she tried to set it back to the agreed 65, it would almost immediately be changed back to the lowest setting. Jay tried to talk to Miss Colorado about it, and they would both agree again that, yes, 65 degrees is fine. But apparently it wasn't, because it kept getting turned down. The mediate was the RA, where everyone agrees 65 is good. Everything seemed great, but zero follow-through. They mediate with the head of the dorm, where everyone agrees. Everyone seems happy. The room is still constantly an icebox. Jay gives up and files to get a new room. She has to change dorms, because there aren't any other rooms in this campus' favorite dorm. And Miss Colorado has a smug face the entire time Jay is packing up her stuff. As a male friend with a large vehicle, Jay asked me to help her move. Between grabbing boxes, I find I'm in a room alone for a moment. I open up the AC unit control box and wedge a little piece of paper in, breaking the circuit and turning off the AC. No permanent damage, and seemingly harmless pity prank. It's still early September and particularly hot here though, 98 degrees outside. By the time we finish getting all boxes, it is noticeably warmer inside. By later that afternoon, I'm sure it's 80 degrees or more. By 3 in the morning, apparently it had been too much to bear for Miss Colorado, who finally found the paper wedge and decided the best thing to do was text death threats to Jay, who knew nothing about the prank. Police were called, the school was notified, and Miss Colorado ended up on academic probation. Here's some better revenge for you. In November, my roommate of 1.5 years decided to evict me so that her friend could move in. I complied and I moved out. However, it hasn't stopped them from pretty much harassing me while we're at work, since my ex-roommate and I worked together. So I finally got fed up. I was at work and outside vaping on my break and could loudly hear her and her friend talking crap about me. Well, once my ex-roommate went back into the building, I went ahead and took snapshots of her, holding her phone, and she kind of incriminated herself, because she was holding her phone in a position that almost made it look like she was taking pictures of me. I went straight to security and I told them her license plate number and that she was taking pictures of me, and it made me very uncomfortable when they put the security cameras obviously with the angle they couldn't see the screen on her phone. But I could see that she had her phone in her hand at the time, and I said she was taking pictures of me. And I took pictures of her. Needless to say, my ex-roommate is now having to Uber to and from work because her friend is no longer allowed on the property. Ever since the pandemic started, as you all know, a lot of lobbies are often closed and you have to go through the drive-thru. Where I live, everything is pretty much open, but Taco Bell's always hit and miss. Sometimes a single Taco Bell will go back and forth between their lobby being open, so it's a guessing game. Got a Taco Bell order, parked so I could go in, but the door was locked. No big deal. Got back in my car and went through the drive-thru. She told me I needed to come in. I told her I tried. She said, "You need to go in through a different door." I asked if she could just hand it to me through the drive-thru since I had tried to come in already, and she just said no and wouldn't respond to anything else I said. Side note, there was nobody in the drive-thru. It was morning and pretty dead. Irritated, I parked again and tried a different door, and it was locked. Tried a third door and I got in. She handed me the food and I said in a friendly tone, "Just so you know, legally, every door for customers has to be unlocked during business hours. It even says that at the top of the doors." She said, "I don't like having all the doors unlocked, so mind your own business." We got into a small confrontation there and I left pretty irritated. I called a nearby Taco Bell to ask how to contact the district manager and they got me in touch with him. I told him everything that happened and he told me he was going to call them and call me back. About an hour goes by and he calls me back and tells me that the 2 doors I tried were broken and they were going to get them fixed. And us delivery drivers need to stop being upset at every little tiny thing and bothering managers. My irritated mood just went from 5 to 10 really fast. He kept going on about how us delivery drivers just need to learn what's how to know, and how the food industry is sick of us all. I was like, "Sir, just so you know, I'm disabled, and having to get in and out of the car a punch is a hassle. But what if someone really disabled was trying to get in and had to try 3 different doors? Not to mention if there was a fire." It is important to note here that there were 2 different small parties inside eating. So after he hung up on me, I called OSHA and filed a report, and they told me to call the fire department right away because yeah, doors must remain unlocked at all times. Fire departments and OSHA have now gotten back to me and I feel justified. They sent me a copy of the locksmith he had to hire to fix the door that he said was supposedly broken and the fine to the city. The fire department had gotten to the store before the district manager, so the doors in question were still locked, and they experienced that for themselves. Every time I call Taco Bell corporate, it just hangs up when you select the option to talk to someone, so I called a more local company that owns the Taco Bells around here and turned in the recording of the phone call with a DM. What could have been solved by handing me the order through the window or, God forbid, unlocking the doors, which were not broken, turned into close to $1,000 in fine for that DM and ruined his week. I am so sick of restaurants treating us like garbage. My wife's story, I played a role. Her oldest son's dad paid for child support for about a year. Her son was born with health issues, clubfoot, lots of surgeries into his teens, and he told her he didn't want much to do with him until he was fixed. They ended up moving out of state with her parents, and when he was 14, she applied for child support in her new state. He actually tried to get custody back to avoid paying, which failed, and all in all, it cost her about $3,000 in attorney fees. The old state sent over a $0 balance and she thought that was it. I met her about a year after this. I told her what I knew to be true from my parents' divorce. Child support obligations never go away. The original state had screwed up. So on her behalf and with her blessing, I called up her new state and pointed out that the $0 balance that had been sent over was incorrect and he had not paid for 13 years until they turned it back on. Q holds music, has new state questions old states and delays and waits. So about a year and a half later, old state sent her some forms to declare when he had paid and so on. We fill them out and we wait. A few months later, they sent an official mail with all the missing years that they had actually had a record of. About $104,000 in principal and interest. A hearing was set for November 2020, and son's dad divorced his wife even though they were still together. She had gotten ill and lived in a care home. November solidified the court hearing before a judge for April 2021. This was Old State Child Support Services versus him, so no out-of-pocket attorney for the wife. She gets to attend the April meeting after declining an offer of $60,000 to settle with the added threat of not ever getting the whole amount. The guy did not disclose all of his assets. He had a retirement account and a house with about $300,000 equity. His lawyer tried to nonsense the judge and say he didn't know he had to pay. The original order included the paternity test, so no argument there. The judge just pointed out that he had paid for the first year. He awarded the whole amount. He then claimed his wife and lack of assets and income as reasons not to be able to pay. The judge ordered $750 a month. Well, our guy, even though he was probably getting garnished, did not pay the full amount after April. He paid about a third. And in December, it happened. Boom. The whole amount dropped. No idea why. He wouldn't have done it on his own. Our theory is a threat of jail. They emptied his retirement, or he tried to sell his house and got hit with a lien. So now the wife has funds to play with, and her son, now 18, has a new truck. A bit of background first. This will be a long one. Also, I can list a lot of details since I pretty much doubt anyone I know even knows Reddit exists. This happened about 6 or 7 years ago in my country, Brazil, when I was in my last year of law school. College life here in Brazil probably works a lot different than in other countries, so this is how it usually goes for law students. You get to do internships pretty much from the very start of your college life. In fact, it is expected of you that you work in courts, law firms, government agencies, and pretty much anywhere you can get even a tiny bit of experience. Sometimes you even get paid. I was working in a criminal court and I had a decent job too, alongside a judge. More on her later. And also doing hearings, aka typing everything that was said during the hearing. Also here in Brazil, each city has its own jurisdiction, and each jurisdiction is then subdivided in numbers. For example, the criminal jurisdiction of my city has 12 criminal courts, or varas as we call them here. Each number has its own judge, judiciary employees and interns. I worked with a judge of the 9th court, and this court handled exclusively people who have been tried, found guilty, served some jail time, and were on something like probation. Here in Brazil, we don't have probation officers. When you're released from prison, it is your obligation to come back every month in the court's registry office to provide information about yourself, where you're currently living, where you're working, where you're studying. If you miss a single one of these appearances, you can be sent back to jail, which happens a lot. Most of the judge's job is listening to the excuses people come up with when they don't show up. We call those justification hearings. This particular judge is famous for being tough, but fair, and sometimes even helping people a little bit if they show they are genuinely sorry. One little detail: the judge is small. And I mean very small. Without heels, she is probably 150 centimeters tall. That's 4'9" for the Americans out there. And seeing tough-looking grown men crumple and cry in front of her when they realize she's not buying into their nonsense is always amazing. This is where the story finally begins. Jay will be the judge, me will be me, and SP will be stupid perp. We're doing the justification hearing scheduled for that day, until one guy got called and came into the room, speaking loudly, not yet screaming that he shouldn't be there, since someone in the court registry said he didn't have to show up last month. The judge asked him a few questions, why he didn't present himself, what was he doing, and so on. And his response was always the same. One woman told him the last time he came that he could skip the month. He gave no reason for why someone would say that to him, just that he had been told that. I have to inform you that this sometimes do happen, but usually it is for everyone who have to present themselves, not for one single guy, and even if his presence was waived for whatever reason, and for however how long, there will be a note in his file detailing who waived his presence, why and for how long, and there was no such thing in his file. The guy was getting louder and obnoxious by the minute, calling the people in the registry office incompetent, and that if he went to jail because of someone else's fault, someone would pay. He did get quiet when the judge threatened to send him to jail right away, but got louder again the next minute. By this point, everyone was fed up. The judge, the MP, and me. But because of the slim possibility that someone in the registry really did screw up, it's Brazil. It happens more times than we care to admit. She told me to go there with SP and find out who was it that told him he could skip that day and why there was no information on his file. So me and SP get up and go to the next building, where the registry on the 9th court is located, and also where he was supposed to show up. As soon as we enter the room, he points to one of my colleagues, a woman, and the conversation goes something like this. "That one! That witch there!" I tell him no need to shout. I was trying to prevent my friends in there from listening to this guy's nonsense. "Are you sure that's her?" "Yes, I'm sure. She told me I didn't have to come this month, and didn't write in my file. I remember her because she's brown." He really said that, but it wasn't like he was being racist. I think he just grabbed the first fact about the girl and used as a proof of what he'd been saying. Even so, being pointed at by someone screaming and saying the color of your skin makes anyone uncomfortable. Me? Again, no need to shout. "Are you really sure it's her?" "Yes!" "Okay then, let's go back." I immediately turned around and went back, and as soon as we were sitting in our seats in the hearing room, the judge asks me, "So Ryle, who said he could skip this month?" He pointed to me, who supposedly told him that, and I made sure he had the right person. The only problem is that intern he said did it started working here 2 days ago, so there is no way she was here last month to attend him. The look on the guy's face brings a smile to my face to this day. Sadly, he didn't cry. I guess it's obvious he went back to jail and I never saw him again, since I graduated a few months later and couldn't work there anymore. And now we have reached the end of today's stories. Thank you for watching and see you next time.